underneath came up, and then it's so simple with just a slight energy technology to separate that water into hydrogen gas. Now, there's one new theory that's also come out that ties in with our co-writer. We have a co-writer on the book named James Brown. He's a contractor, and so he knows a lot about building, and that is the fact of using maybe lasers. Now, I know lasers sound very odd for people going back, 4,000, 5,000 years, and people laugh at that. However, but there's a new working theory for fusion. Now, this is a great technology. This is not fission that gives you all the pollution, but this is fusion. And they're using hydrogen and boron. Now, boron was available in Egypt, and hydrogen is what we're talking about. If you pulse it, you pulse that energy, you will get fusion, you'll get a reactor going. And I believe, and so does our colleague, the Grand Gallery was that place for that reactor.
Chemical laser.
Now, we believe hydrogen gas was made and used all over most of the temples of Egypt.
What did they use this for?
Well, that's always a very big question. So obviously not everyone had an electric light bulb. They didn't drive cars like we would do today, right, because we really shouldn't be using it.
They didn't have their computers.
Right. So they didn't need it. But what they did use it for was the priest and the royal family.
As well as the artist.
And the artist. So what they can do, like the Dendera light bulb, right? You can use a gas to light. And we know that when Dr. Hurtak said the artist, it's because if you go underground, you'll find a lot of the details on these tombs and chambers. You can't even use mirrors to get the light down into them. And there's no soot on the wall. So how did they do this beautiful art in the lower chambers if they didn't have some sort of light? Now, Eric Von Daniken has shown that you can take that Dendera light bulb that you see on the wall and make a light bulb.
We actually saw this demonstrated in the year 2000 in Vienna, Austria, where we had anthropologists and researchers from all parts of the world looking at the interesting artifacts of Egypt, as Desiree has just explained, from Dendera, where you see pre-scientists sitting under these two flasks, lighting, as it were, like the neon light, suggesting the Egyptians had the ability to create certain gases, light sources that enabled them to put together a vast labyrinthian system of tunnels and canals under the complete Giza Plateau. So this is the great complex of Giza that we're talking about for energy production, for the training of scientists throughout the ancient Middle East, like Pythagoras and others, as well as leaving behind time capsules of information that Russian scientists believe connect us with distant galaxies.
How did they know this technology? I mean, who taught it?
Well, of course, if we go by the Egyptian records themselves, like the German philologist Chris Sethi wrote, in terms of the Egyptian cosmic heritage, the gods, the imperishable gods from Orion, or Imsak, the Egyptian word from the stargates of Orion, from the three stars in the belt of Orion, somehow had the ability to transmit this information metaphysically to the mind and the Egyptians, or a earlier society of pre-scientists were able to translate this into physical form.
Desiree, you think so too?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'd like to go on a little bit about the hydrogen technology, what else they could use it for.
Sure, absolutely.
Plutarch, a very famous historian, wrote that in the temple of Jupiter Ammon, which is perhaps even on the border of Libya, that they had a light that would never go out. They call it one of the eternal lights, that even with rain or wind, it would never go out. And we believe that's what you see in what's called Brown's gas, which is a slight alteration from the hydrogen splitting.
To the HHO.
It's HHO. So you can have this very powerful acetylene torch. That's really, it's cold almost to the touch around it, but it's so powerful it can cut through, sheets of steel. So that's one aspect. Now, also Eagle Research, who talks often about new technologies, mentions that even hydrogen, this HHO especially, you can actually drink it because it's negative ions. and it actually makes you healthy. So we are not into healing. I'm not telling everyone to go out there and go do it.
Drink your hydrogen.
Yeah,
right?
no. Well, the HHO in particular, which is Brown's gas, has been known. It's actually a hexagonal shaped water, like Jerry Pollack has come out with, if you've heard about the work
Sure.
he's done. And basically, people have taken it in and said it's, or even just put it on their bodies, it heals wounds. So I'm not into healing, telling people what to do, but there's a lot of benefit. Also, agriculture. Agriculture was known, for the Egyptians. I mean, people came to Egypt to get the agriculture. And if this water, even with hydrogen, we use hydrogen today in agriculture. That's one of our mainstays.
Absolutely. We use it in cars these days.